Plato exposes the lie behind modern freedom, the truth about authority and control. You live in a time where freedom is constantly celebrated. You're told you're free to speak, free to choose, free to vote, and free to define your own path. Yet deep inside, a quiet doubt persists. Why does this freedom so often feel hollow? Why in the midst of choices and voices do you still feel powerless, unheard, and trapped? Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher, anticipated this very illusion. He warned of a freedom that disguises control and of authority that thrives behind a mask of liberation. His insights are not just relevant, they're prophetic, and today, more than ever, they must be heard. In Plato's masterpiece, The Republic, he does not begin with external politics. He starts with the soul. For Plato, every political structure is a reflection of the inner life of its citizens. A society ruled by greed and appearance is born from souls lost in their desires and blind to truth. The lie behind modern freedom begins not in the government or the media. It begins in the soul that chooses comfort over truth and illusion over reality. Imagine this. You're given unlimited access to entertainment, consumption, opinions, and expressions. But at the same time, you're exhausted, misinformed, and manipulated. Plato would ask, who truly benefits from this so-called freedom? Is it you, or is it those who shape your desires, control your fears, and define your idea of reality without you even noticing? For Plato, modern freedom isn't freedom at all when it detaches from virtue and wisdom. Real freedom, according to Plato, is not the ability to do whatever you want. It's the mastery of your own soul. A person who is ruled by every impulse, every passing pleasure is not free. He is a slave to chaos. And a society filled with such individuals becomes ripe for control. When people cannot govern themselves, they cry out for someone to govern them. Thus, authoritarian power emerges not by force, but by invitation. Plato's allegory of the cave perfectly illustrates this. Prisoners are chained inside a dark cave, forced to watch shadows on the wall cast by objects they never see. To them, those shadows are reality. But one prisoner escapes. He climbs out of the cave, and for the first time sees the light of the sun, the true source of all knowledge and life. When he returns to free the others, they reject him. They cling to the shadows. Why? Because the lie is more comfortable than the truth. Today's world mirrors that cave. The shadows are the narratives you are fed about success, power, identity, even liberty. You believe you are free because you can scroll endlessly, choose between brands, or express opinions on platforms designed to harvest your attention. But who is casting the shadows? Who decides what you see, what you value, what you fear? Plato believed that only the philosopher, the one who loves wisdom, can break this cycle. Not because he is better, but because he seeks what is real beyond what is easy. He trains his soul to endure discomfort for the sake of truth. He disciplines his mind to question what others accept. He does not chase freedom as an external condition, but cultivates it inwardly, through justice, temperance, and courage. Here lies the core of Plato's message. True justice begins with the individual. Before you demand justice from your leaders, you must become just yourself. Before you cry out against tyranny, you must stop being a tyrant over your own conscience. And before you fight for freedom, you must ask, am I truly free from ignorance, fear, and manipulation? Authority, Plato knew, is not inherently evil, but it becomes dangerous when wielded by those who do not know themselves. A leader without wisdom is a tyrant in disguise, and a people without self-knowledge will always mistake loudness for leadership, charisma for competence, and control for care. You suffer in silence not because you lack freedom, but because your soul is confused about what freedom truly is. You chase liberty but avoid responsibility. You reject authority yet crave direction. This internal contradiction breeds both chaos and control. And those who understand this, those who study the soul more than strategy, can manipulate masses, without them even realizing. Plato does not leave you in despair. He offers a path, a way to reclaim your freedom by reclaiming yourself. Begin by questioning your assumptions. Examine your desires. Where did they come from? Are they yours, or were they implanted by others? Cultivate virtue. Educate your soul. Don't settle for the comfort of shadows. Seek the light, even if it blinds you at first. Because in Plato's world, the person who sees the sun cannot unsee it. He carries the truth within him. And even if the world resists him, mocks him, or ignores him, he is free. This is the first step. The lie behind modern freedom is subtle, seductive, and systemic. But with Plato as your guide, you can begin to see through it. You can begin to reclaim authority, not as something imposed upon you, but as something that flows from the harmony within you. And in doing so, you will no longer suffer in silence. You will stand in truth. More is yet to come. But now you've taken the first step out of the cave. You've stepped outside the cave. You've begun to see how modern freedom, as it's sold to you, can be nothing more than a comforting illusion. But Plato doesn't stop at the initial awakening. For him, the real challenge begins after the first light hits your eyes. Once you glimpse the truth, the next step is transformation of your soul, your mind, and ultimately, your place in society. The lie behind modern freedom is not just a political strategy, it is a spiritual disease, and only a deep internal revolution can cure it. In his vision of the ideal city, Plato outlines the concept of a philosopher king, a leader not driven by power, pleasure, or popularity, but by wisdom and the pursuit of the good. This idea is not simply a dream of perfect governance, it is a mirror. A society cannot be ruled by wisdom unless its people seek wisdom within themselves. The philosopher king is not an external savior. He is the symbol of what each of us must become. Plato divides the soul into three parts: the rational, the spirited, and the appetitive. The rational seeks truth, the spirited seeks honor, and the appetitive seeks pleasure. In a disordered soul, the appetites dominate. The person chases pleasure, fears discomfort, and becomes easily manipulated. But in a well-ordered soul, the rational part governs, with the spirited aiding its direction. This harmony creates inner justice, and only from inner justice can true political justice emerge. Think of modern societies. What drives most decisions? Is it truth, or is it image, desire, and fear? Leaders are chosen not for their wisdom, but for their charisma. Policies are made not for virtue, but for popularity. The public is not educated for truth, but distracted for compliance. Plato's words echo with eerie relevance. He warned that when the appetitive part of society dominates, democracy becomes chaos, and chaos invites tyranny. Now consider your own life. How often are your decisions ruled by reason? How often do you act from impulse, from social pressure, from fear of missing out? Plato doesn't condemn these impulses. He simply says they must not rule. You are free only when you can say no to your desires. You are free only when your reason governs your actions. This isn't a call to become a cold, calculating being. Plato's view of reason includes the good. It is not just intelligence, but wisdom, justice, and truth. To live under reason is to live in alignment with what is eternal and noble, not with what is trending and temporary. The modern world confuses noise with expression, consumption with choice, and rebellion with freedom. But Plato teaches that rebellion without wisdom is simply another form of slavery. If you reject authority, but don't rule yourself, you've only traded one master for another. There is another concept Plato brings forth in his dialogues: the idea of the noble lie. In his ideal city, a myth is told to citizens about their origins, to inspire unity and social harmony. While the idea may seem manipulative, Plato's intention was to highlight a deeper truth. People need meaning to stay united. Without a shared vision of what is good, society fragments. Modern freedom often promises you total individuality, but without common purpose, freedom decays into isolation and suspicion. This isolation breeds emptiness, and emptiness breeds control. When people no longer feel a sense of purpose, they seek distractions, and those distractions are given to them endlessly. This is not freedom. This is sedation. You're not being empowered. You're being pacified. Plato would not be surprised by the mental health crisis, the loneliness epidemic, the explosion of identity confusion. He would trace all of it back to the soul's disconnection from truth. A soul without truth is like an eye turned from the sun. It cannot see and it cannot guide. So how do you return to truth? You must begin with philosophy. Not the academic, kind, real philosophy. The love of wisdom. The commitment to asking difficult questions and enduring uncomfortable answers. You must become a lover of truth, even when it demands sacrifice. You must detach from the lie that freedom means ease. Freedom, Plato says, is earned through discipline, through struggle, through awakening. This journey requires solitude, not loneliness, but reflective silence. You must listen to your own soul beyond the noise of society. Ask yourself, what do I really want? What am I avoiding? Who benefits from my distractions? You will find that many of your desires are not truly yours. They were implanted by a culture designed to keep you predictable, profitable, and passive. Plato challenges you to re-educate your soul. Turn your gaze from the shadows to the source. Learn to recognize the false lights, those who offer easy answers, superficial pleasures, and manufactured enemies. Look for the good. Not as an idea, but as a reality you must live. You must cultivate temperance, not because someone forces you, but because your soul demands it. You must seek justice, not just in law, but in every choice you make. This is the revolution Plato offers, not with violence, but with virtue, not against others, but against ignorance. You fight not to overthrow a government, but to dethrone your own delusions. And the battlefield is within. Modern freedom, unanchored from wisdom, becomes a weapon. It destroys community. It glorifies the shallow. It blinds you to your own enslavement. But freedom rooted in philosophy, that transforms everything. It creates leaders who do not crave power, but service. Citizens who do not demand rights, but responsibility. And souls who do not chase pleasure, but truth. You're no longer in the cave, but now you must walk the path. Plato never promised the road would be easy. He promised it would be worth it. Because on the other side of illusion lies a freedom that no tyrant can steal, no system can fake, and no shadow can conceal. The lie has been exposed. The journey continues. But now, your eyes are adjusting, and the real world is beginning to appear. Plato's philosophical lens does not merely diagnose the condition of modern freedom, it also offers a way out. In the final reflections of this journey, we delve into the essential idea that freedom cannot be severed from the soul's internal alignment with truth. Modern society has conditioned us to equate freedom with the ability to choose anything, pursue pleasure, and resist all forms of restraint. But for Plato, real liberty begins only when one understands the nature of the self and the order of the soul. Without this, freedom becomes chaos, masked, celebrated, but ultimately destructive. He begins with a challenging claim: the individual who believes himself free in a corrupt society is often the most enslaved. Why? Because he operates under illusions. He does not recognize that his desires are not his own, but have been manufactured by the environment. Media, politics, culture, and education subtly mold him into a predictable agent, not of justice or virtue, but of compliance and distraction. In Plato's metaphor of the cave, the prisoners do not realize they are in chains because the shadows dancing on the wall are entertaining enough to hold their gaze. The freedom to move within that cave feels like autonomy, but it is anything. But to expose the lie behind modern freedom is to ask a hard question. Who benefits from the confusion between liberty and license? Who gains when you believe that indulging every impulse is a form of liberation? Plato would point toward the ruling powers, those who govern not in the name of truth, but in the name of control. For such rulers, a population that mistakes pleasure for freedom is far easier to manipulate than one that understands the moral discipline required to attain real autonomy. True freedom, according to Plato, is not freedom from external constraints, but freedom from internal chaos. A person ruled by appetite and irrational desire is not free. He is fragmented, a slave to whatever whim arises. In contrast, the individual who disciplines the soul, who educates reason, who trains his will to serve truth and justice, this person alone is truly free. He is not tossed about by passing trends or swept away by every popular opinion. He stands firm, grounded in something deeper than opinion. He is anchored in the good. But this raises a crucial point. How does one move from illusion to truth? How can the soul, conditioned by years of false freedom, begin to seek the real thing? Plato's answer is education, not the accumulation of facts, but the transformation of the inner being. It begins with turning the soul toward the light, a painful and often disorienting process. When the eyes are used to darkness, light is not welcomed, it burns. So too, when the soul is used to flattery, indulgence, and comfort, the disciplines of truth appear harsh. Yet only through this struggle can clarity be gained. Plato does not underestimate the difficulty of this transformation. He knows that the soul will resist. It will try to return to the shadows. It will cling to comfortable lies. But once the process begins, once the soul catches even a glimpse of what is real, it cannot forget. That glimpse will haunt it. It will call the individual higher, demanding more than mere survival or superficial pleasure. It will demand virtue, courage, justice, and wisdom. This is the reason Plato saw philosophy not as an academic pursuit, but as a way of life. It is not something you do in a classroom. It is something you live with your whole being. To live philosophically is to question, to doubt, to strip away illusion, to confront uncomfortable truths, not just about the world, but about yourself. It is to wage war against the false self, the self constructed by propaganda and pleasure, and to uncover the authentic self grounded in eternal principles. And yet, such a life will not be applauded. In fact, Plato warns that the philosopher will often be persecuted. Why? Because he disrupts the system. He exposes the illusions that keep it functioning. He pulls back the curtain. He dares to say that the emperor has no clothes. And for this, society will mock him, exile him, or worse. But the philosopher does not live for applause. He lives for truth. So what does this mean for you, the listener, right now? It means that your freedom does not depend on politics, parties, or protests. It depends on your soul. Are you aligned with truth? Are you governed by reason and virtue? Or are you driven by fear, desire, and opinion? These are not abstract questions. They determine the quality of your life and the reality of your freedom. You may not be able to change the system overnight, but you can change how you relate to it. You can become the kind of person who cannot be corrupted, because you are ruled not by external forces but by internal clarity. You can cultivate an inner world so strong, so luminous, that no external darkness can overwhelm it. That is what Plato invites you to build. Not a utopia outside, but a city within. The just city, the ordered soul. And from that inner order, real change becomes possible. For as long as individuals believe the lie of modern freedom, society remains vulnerable to manipulation. But when enough souls awaken, when enough people live from the center of truth rather than the edges of chaos, then justice becomes more than an ideal. It becomes a force. It becomes a revolution, not of violence, but of vision. A revolution of the soul. This is the freedom that cannot be taken, because it is not granted by any institution. It is not written on any document. It lives where no tyranny can reach, in the conscience of the wise, in the will of the just, in the heart of the courageous. It is invisible, indestructible, and eternal. So do not look outward for freedom. Look inward. Do not ask what the government allows, ask what your soul demands. Do not chase comfort, seek clarity. Do not follow the crowd, follow the light. Because in the end, only one kind of freedom matters. The freedom to become who you truly are. And that, Plato says, is the only freedom worth fighting for.